And after a quick break, we are back and progressing into what could be the closest matchup of the day here, Pandamonium up against the accounting department. These two teams have played twice throughout Phase 1 of the SCC, both teams taking a win, and both of them 2-0 wins for one team or the other. So volatile matchup. 2-0s is what we have in the history, but Mifflin and I both thinking this one might go all three. Miff, do you think we finally progress in to a 3-0 set here between this Pandamonium and accounting department team? It seems like on any given day, one team has had the answer over the other, and then if you do win this matchup, you get a date with Elysium in the semifinals. So not really excited to win that one, I guess. But do you think this one has 3 games written all over it?
I really do, man. When you have two volatile sets like these two teams have had in the past, it gives you a lot of information on what to study up on. What are they doing at their best? What are they really trying to do when all the pieces come together? And then on playoff day, when you've got this land mentality around you, you can at least take away 1 or 2 of those pieces, make it a little bit harder for it to happen again. With all that homework for both of these squads coming through, I think it almost has to go 3.
And I think there's going to be a pretty distinct vibe in this set after game number 1. If one team or the other kind of runs away with things after game 1, then maybe we'll be able to come back on the desk and reassess our set length predictions. Now, Pandamonium, the first team we're going to be talking about in this matchup, Kana, Sarpei, Joshi, Streakup, and Emilzi, noted as the support player here for this Pandamonium team. Again, a team that has found some success throughout Phase 1 of the SCC. They've given Elysium a run for their money a couple of times, and Mifflin, they have a pretty good shot of winning their first set here.
Plenty of veteran talent on this squad. I mean, Sarpei, Joshi, Streakup, and Kana have played together for so long at this level. They're just looking to make that break and get the opportunity to play up against Elysium in the next phase here. I think that this squad is at their best when they're playing around their jungler. Sarpei, when he is hitting the ground running, when he gets some of that global presence, even on gods like this Tsukiyomi, can really start to change up how the pace of this game is played. Generally, we see them try and shift their focus more so towards that 3v3 rather than that duo lane emphasis that we've seen from other teams around their jungler. So keep your eyes. Sarpei, for me, he's going to be the pace setter.
Agreed. The jungle matchup in any game is so important.
Agreed.
But for this... Well, let me. All right, so we need to rephrase this. The matchup specifically is important, but the players themselves
and the role.
Maybe not. I don't know. I don't care who's playing jungle. It's just that jungle has to occur in the game. You have to clear the buffs, right? Somebody has to do it. It's kind of the last ditch effort there. Just kidding, Miff. I love you and all other junglers as a whole, unless they're ganking me in the mid lane and all that sort of fun stuff. But we are confirming that Emilzi is playing support here for this team here. Mifflin, what are your thoughts? I mean, 1 month ago exactly, on the 25th of last month, Preds had been playing support for this Pandamonium team, left, Emilzi stepped in. What do you think about the addition of a storied player here?
Well, he is a storied player. He's an old player, veteran, maybe some might say geriatric at this point. Emilzi has been around the scene since the scene's conception, and it's been a little while since he's played at the competitive level that we could expect, but I have been watching his stream recently. He has certainly got a good grasp on the meta here in Season 8, and I think that veteranship, that ability to play at the highest level, that distant memory of competing on the world stage can certainly help him out here in the playoffs.
It's brutal. Call him geriatric, the distant fading memory of playing on the world.
You added fading.
He's sunsetting is what you're trying to say.
What's that mean?
Look at Emilzi sitting at his computer right now, like a sharp pain like in his shoulder. He's just getting smacked by us for no reason here on the desk. Look, Emilzi's going to have to play on top of his game as well as the rest of this Pandamonium team, because the accounting department have brought a roster that has plenty of name recognition in there as well. Deathwalker, Ice, Wolfie, Okeanos, and Kalas. They're going to be bringing it here, and it's going to be a very difficult task for Pandamonium to step up against.
Worth noting, the coach for the accounting department squad is Alpha Jackal. You might know him from the amateur caster team. Yeah, well, luckily he's not on this set, Dave, so maybe that was an intentional decision from the decision maker, Hindu man behind the scenes. But this is a squad, I think, that has a very interesting approach to matches. They play standard Smite through and through. It's almost reminiscent of that OG Sanguine squad in that they're going to play the exact same drafts as they're allowed to. They're going to try and get whatever is best, and they stick to that standard style of Smite. We're going to wait till that 25-minute mark, group up around these neutral objectives, and try and play through them there. In particular, the standout player for this squad, for me personally, has been Deathwalker out of the Soul lane. He has been consistently able to find pressure. One of the first guys here in Season 8 to say, say, hey guys, Osiris is real good. Stop by Destol, though it's sick with Bluestone.
Yeah, and I'm intrigued now, and I'm glad you bring up the Osiris, because even in our first set of the day, we've seen King Arthur kind of looked over, but Osiris has sort of filled that solo lane gap as well. Now that it's Deathwalker, maybe the best SCC player and one of the best in the world to be playing this Osiris pick, I wonder if Osiris suddenly starts to draw a little bit more attention from this Pandamonium team out of picks and bans. Should be interesting to watch. Don't know, Mifflin, if we're going to see Sylvanas out of the jungle here today.
Hopefully not.
You talk about this brand of Smite that accounting department like to play, and that's absolutely part of that brand. ESET, though, I think might make an appearance here in this set between Pandamonium and the accounting department. Still brings a lot to the table, whether jungle or more traditionally for this accounting department team out of the mid lane. Without further ado, let's jump into picks and bans, though, for game number 1 in C, where all of this speculation ends up ringing down. Do you imagine, though, Miff, I'll bring it right on back to it, do you imagine Osiris sees a little bit more attention here between these two teams?
Would not be overly surprised if we see Osiris immediately get banned out in this first phase of bans. I mean, that is how prolific Deathwalker has been on this pick. He will run it as long as he is allowed to, and when he is allowed to, he does incredibly well. I think it would be a great start for Pandamonium to just go ahead and remove that one from the playfield.
Well, it's on the table right now. Sol and Yamoja both taken away, a little fire, a little water. On the other side, Heimdall and Athena are both going to catch a ban as well. And then it's Giannis for Pandamonium instead of what we figured might have been that Osiris. So now we're going to get a good look at what the accounting department really prioritized in this draft, especially after Pandamonium grabbed their first pick over there. If Osiris is still on the table and that's what Deathwalker wants to play, is it worthwhile with one of your 2 final picks, especially with something like the Tiamat still there, and Pandamonium won't give accounting department the option. Tiamat first pick.
Yeah, Tiamat's so incredibly strong. I mean, we have not run out of praises to sing, right? I mean,
No.
it's global presence because you could just drop a minion on the opposite side of the map. It's immense artillery damage from a range. Just great CC as well. Has a stun inside the kit. Damage mitigation when inside the 4-legged form. If there is a stat line in Smite, Tiamat has it in one way or another, and that's why she has been consistently picked in not only the SCC but also the SPL level. But here's a pick that I was expecting to see much more this weekend. This Gilgamesh finally getting locked in. Lasbra has a great performance on it last week. We've seen that this pick has become very consistent out of the jungle. I mean, CC, damage output, he's got it.
That's a great point there, Mifflin. I was surprised that we didn't see Gilgamesh hardly at all in our first set of the day. Now, it is Osiris locked in, but it's for Pandamonium here. I kind of figured that. If accounting department didn't grab Osiris with one of the first 2, then it would just make sense for Pandamonium to grab with one of their next 2, whether it be the second or the third. And then Ymir as well. Ymir's in such an interesting spot where the space control and the setup is just so prevalent. The wall, so disruptive in these jungle-present team fights. So I think makes some sense then for Pandamonium to lock in that pick. And then a Chernobog as well, Mifflin. Do you think there's some counterplay around this Ymir at foot with the Chernobog lock in here? Or is that just a good pick in the duo lane, kind of notwithstanding who you're going up against?
Chernobog not necessarily the greatest up against Ymir. Sure, you've got the dash. You can enter Ymir's wall or another wall to just kind of use it as its own little Aegis. But if you dash into Ymir wall, he can immediately cancel it, and you just pop right on out.
Right.
And it's super easy to shut him down. But Ymir is also going to struggle a little bit in locking down Fafnir, who's essentially going to have 2 jumps available to him. You catch the first one, turn into a dragon, do it again. Gilgamesh as well has got a leap available to him too. So this Ymir really is going to have to pick his spots with these walls in the jungle. But it's a 7-second wall, Dave, man. It's not hard. Just one opportunity can immediately open up these engagements. And when you have this level of space control in the jungle as well as this level of map control through Tiamat, Pandamonium should be able to bring a lot of pressure.
That's a great point. I mean, look, you look at Yamoja and the River's Rebuke, and you bring up the jungle fights. One River's Rebuke is often used just to catch somebody else out in the jungle, and then the rest of the team engages. A Ymir can do that, not with double walls, but you can lock somebody's escape path off on a consistent basis for 7 seconds at a time. Medusa and Set are going to be the final 2 picks here for this Pandamonium team. I want to get your quick thoughts, though, Mifflin, before we talk about that. On this Ratatoskr, saw plenty of ban presence in our first set of the day. Now is going to get locked in alongside the Merlin for accounting department.
Gotta think that Rapio's just been tearing up scrims on this Ratatoskr pick, man. It's a consistent pick in that it has global presence. It's got good CC lockdown. You dunk down, you get the knock up. If someone's late on the beads, well, all of a sudden that CC immunity is just unused, and you can stun them on the tail end. Good defense shred as well. I think that it really does emphasize accounting department's early game. They really want to utilize the global presence that their entire draft brings. It's not just the Ratatoskr who should be able to gank gank wherever he wants, whenever he wants, but it's also Chernobog who can teleport to the opposite side of the map. At no point in this game, literally at no point, should Accounting Department take a team fight where they are at a disadvantage. They should always have the numbers advantage.
And, this is a pretty unique kind of niche scenario. Is there any extra value that you get out of a Chernobog and a Ratatoskr with the potential for something like a Tiamat minion split push? Maybe not so much with Chernobog because you have to teleport to an enemy player, but little semi-global utility out of the Ratatoskr. Does that help you at all in your mind with the Tiamat minions, or are you going to have to find an answer for that elsewhere?
There is an interesting point of interaction in that, sure, Ratatoskr can go clear out the minions and then use the ultimate to close gap if it's in the dual lane to get to a fire giant fight. But Tiamat does have to be present to put down that portal if there is a late-game team fight, and for some reason Tiamat is over on the left-hand side while the rest of your team's grouped up on fire. Chernobog can just ult on over there and take the 1v1.
Well, it's a big matchup. Pandemonium versus Accounting Department. J-Mac and Aggro will take us in.
Thank you, Dolson and Mifflin. As I said, J-Mac and Aggro on the cast. Pandemonium and Accounting Department, this is one of the most coveted matchups, I would say, Aggro, through probably all of the EU SCC. These two teams, they talked about, they've had a 2-0 matchup for both of them, and they've both come up with a victory. I mean, this is going to be a really tough matchup for both these teams.
Really excited to see how this Pandemonium roster is going to look with Emilzy now at the helm here in support. I mean, Pandemonium, obviously a ton of talent there all season long, but Emilzy is definitely the next level when it comes to supports. I mean, he hasn't played competitive in a little bit, but he was also near the top of the SPL during his long tenure there. So excited to see what his leadership and his creativity is going to bring, and something that he always brought to those SPL teams. And I anticipate that it's going to be pretty similar here for Pandemonium.
Yeah, in his first couple of weeks of play, it was a little bit of that slow start, give him the really just kind of bog standard support. So you kind of still see that, I would say, with this Ymir, kind of just going back to basics with it. But he's really stepped himself back up with this, long streak of this competitive, absence that he has had. Now jumping into the SCC to kind of get that chance back at it. But we already see some very early action, and Milzy steps up. He's level 2, so he's got the freeze, and that may have been the only reason that he lives there. Sunder expended out of Kalas, and Ice looking for an early rotation potential, but not going to see much out of it as we go into the solo lane. Look, I'll be honest with you, I saw this Ratatoskr locked in. I didn't think it was going anywhere but Deathwalker. He seems to be one of the only solo laners and one of the few players in the league still heavily prioritizing this god.
It still brings a lot of map pressure whenever you get to the mid to late game. Having that ability to rotate quickly into mid and influence fights around mid-harpy camps and potentially even red buff invades is really strong. And I think it just fits with how Accounting Department likes to play their team fight. They like to play very front to back, kill the tanks first, then we get to the back line once we get through the front line. And Ice is so good on these setup sort of team fight gods like the Gilgamesh. This is the exact type of pick that I would expect Ice to be really comfortable on. And I'm surprised we didn't see more of it in the first set of the playoffs today. I think we're going to see quite a bit of it. I really think Gilgamesh is one of the premier gods in Smite right now, and Ice is a perfect player to try and pilot it.
And talking about, speaking of seeing more of here, Tiamat again, a first pick in the first game of a set. We saw what Snake Hunter, what Pretty Prime was able to do on it. Do you think that this Tiamat is kind of finally in a position where it's okay to just let her through because of how many other gods there are, or is this just kind of a, oops, we let Tiamat through?
No, I still think she's really good. I don't think she's unbeatable by any stretch. I think the main thing that gave teams problems, namely her split push potential, is a lot worse than it used to be, and that's important.
Kala's going to leap in, and Milzy's going to get stuck in the middle of him with a 4-man rotation to the dual lane for that attempted purple buff steal. Accounting Department, they're going to come up with first blood.
And perfect rotation over by Ice, exactly what we're talking about. Just easy invades. And that's definitely a lack of map awareness there by Pandemonium to know that, yeah, we've got pressure in duo, but how's our pressure in mid looking? When was the last time we saw Ice? Good wherewithal by the Accounting Department to understand that that's what was going to happen, that was likely going to turn into a purple buff invade. But I think Pandemonium, it's really probably on Joshy to call that off, that he knows that Wolfie is free on the rotation, whereas he will not be.
And with that rotation, Joshy was able to get to level 5, but at the same time, now Wolfie is procced into level 5. So it feels like Joshy didn't really make much of that lead. He had almost a level and a half up on him. Now Wolfie's tied with him. Do you that feels like that rotation was all in favor of Wolfie there, despite Joshy getting that free farm for a moment.
I mean, Joshy has the opportunity now on this Tiamat to start to scale up. I mean, Tiamat is not one of those gods that does that much in the early game. I think her mid 2v2 and 3v3 pre-level 5 is pretty decent because of the stance switch nature, but as soon as you start to see other characters get their ultimates online, I think Tiamat does start to fall off in those little skirmishes. Takes a while before she has the itemization and the cooldown reduction and the damage in order to really put threat on the enemy backline or front line for that matter. So Pandamonium likely to try and take this one a little bit slower. I think their composition takes much longer to scale up to full power in comparison.
Ice making a quick rotation again to the dual lane streak up low in mana. Ice a little low as well. Okeanos with that ultimate not going to elect to go in, and that'll be a good rotation for streak up to get out of there. Kind of looking through, towards these supports more than anything. The Ymir versus Fafnir, to me it feels like it's a Fafnir favor because of the amount of mobility, the CC, even the wall is going to be stopped out here, but Blinking by Milzy will hold that as he goes right on the Kalos, stun by the mid laner. Joshy able to pick up the kill, and his first one for the team onto the Tiamat. I was going to kind of talk about, what do you think of this support matchup, especially with the relics that they've gone into, but it seems Milzy just doesn't really care. He's got that blink.
No, good identification that you can use the wall to stay out of combat, but still force the jump and set yourself up for a pretty easy kill on the back end of it. And Fafnir just one of those gods that a lot of times feels pretty impossible to take down because of the mobility that you were mentioning. But you need level 5 in order to have that CC immunity that ends up being really important, and Kala still sitting at level 4 ends up being a little bit too aggressive with the positioning. I do like the Ymir for the Pandamonium draft, though, despite how good I think the accounting department's draft can be against it. Having a Ymir with red buff, that's something that we probably don't talk about enough with Tiamat, is that you're enabling your support to take red because you can eat it, get the extra buff, and still drop it on the ground. And Ymir with red is a really, really scary thing to go up against on the other side. So if Emilzy can bait out leaps like we just saw him do, particularly against Wolfie and Okeanos, with red buff, he might be able to just kill people basically by himself.
Well, it's like Forp and Gorp both go the way of Pandamonium as well as those mid camps. And yeah, no, red buff Ymir might be one of the scariest things, even though he's gone for the tank boots, blue stone. Not quite enough to take down Okeanos there. Streak up almost getting that solo kill, but with that one, I mean, it's kind of strange to see, the god who got first blooded, that being Emilzy here on this Ymir, he's got the advantage so far over Kalos as far as the experience goes.
And the net worth, which is very surprising, but Streak Up in some trouble again as Okeanos going to use his ultimate to establish some lane pressure. And even though Okeanos doesn't get the kill, it means he loses less in this lane and could potentially set up for a purple buff invade, though that's a little bit further away than I thought it might be. So not too bad of a trade, as now both hunters don't have their ultimates.
And Okeanos gets skimmed right back into the lane. I think that's probably the most crucial thing for him. He probably didn't care about that. He's just like, hey, I'm back in lane, and I didn't die for using ult. That's a win for me in that case, but that does mean that there could be a potential rotation. You did see Sarpay make an early rotation over here, and he still could be looking for more. Use the Sandstorm to go in, but once again, big stun by Kalas. It's going to stop him in his place.
And this is, again, just the pressure that Streak Up has really created on this left-hand side, going for the boots first instead of the Transcendence, whereas Okeanos goes the Devos right away and makes him a little bit more susceptible to getting killed in the 1v1 or in a gank situation. So I like Kalas hovering, making sure that Okeanos is not going to get chased down by these characters who have boots, whereas he does not. And at the same time, Kalas could use the farm, as we were talking about. He's a little bit behind Emilzy in net worth as well as experience. Which is a little bit surprising to me, especially on Fafnir where you're getting that extra gold.
So we've been seeing a lot of Gilgamesh recently, between jungle, between solo lane, we've seen him a couple times, but into this jungle role, where does he kind of, fill the shoes for this team? I noticed he's building into a little bit of attack speed here with this bow that he's gone into. Does it feel like he needs to be that, that all-in burst glass cannon, or do you expect him to maybe go a little bit more bruisery?
I think you need to go bruiser. You can't really afford to go pure damage in the jungle, at least in a competitive setting. You're just going to get exploded come to the mid to late game. I like the bruiser build. You definitely need some sort of offense. Your base damage is high on Gilgamesh, but you won't get the same level scaling that you would in solo, where you're just going to be ahead in XP in most of your skirmishes. In the jungle, you're going to be even, sometimes a little bit behind, so you do need to build some damage. certainly things like Void Shield you can probably expect. Maybe something that looks like it's going to be Ichval, yeah, for Ice. I think I'd probably go Void Shield after this and then pure tank and just try and use my base damage and my setup, because he doesn't have to do a whole lot of damage. The accounting department has phenomenal dive in this game between the Fafnir and the Chernobog and the Ratatosker. There's a lot of dive that Ice is going to get help on these backliners with. He just got to make sure that he isn't getting one-tapped by the Medusa and Tiamat come the mid to late game.
And they've also got, the lockdown centered with that one, too, between Kalas and Deathwalker. I mean, the Winds of Samas might be the most annoying ult to get stuck into, especially if you just have no leap or dash to get out of there. I mean, I don't know about you, Aggro. Have you ever gotten caught inside those Winds of Samas for more than, 2 seconds? You just keep bouncing off the sidewall. It's the worst feeling in the world.
Oh, yeah. No, you're stuck in there for a long period of time. It's the trade-off, A lot of people don't like getting stuck in Odin Cage, but you can't dash out of Odin Cage. You can theoretically dash out of the Gilgamesh ult, but of course those players often are going to hold the ultimate until the dash is down. I am a little surprised that we don't see more heavenly agilities up against it. Just getting that slow immunity to just waltz out of the side of the cage I think can be pretty good, but right now supports are vying for a lot of different pretty strong relics. Sunder, definitely the best support relic in the game right now. Blink still obviously a necessity a lot of times. Frenzy, horrific. They're all pretty good.
Caught him and gets the beads off of that one. Okeanos takes streak up down under half. Ice leaps over, but that opens up the Pyromance on the opposite side of the map. Quick response out of Pandamonium. Meanwhile, Deathwalker will get a little bit of proxy free farm for himself. And now the Gold Fury started up. They've got this Draconic form in accounting department with Kalas. They're able to burn through this Gold Fury very quickly and get their own response to that Pyromancer.
And that's what Fafnir brings to any team composition, but now they might have to fight for it.
Winds of Samash used. The Milsey's able to walk out of it, no problem. He's going to get stunned out, pushed against the wall by Kalas with that dropkick. Leap over the wall by Joshi. And a Milsey with one more basic will find the deal, but Deathwalker comes through from the skies, tries to get the spin wheel, manages to find it, and has the dash to get out as well. They trade out a 2-for-1. Not sure how worth that is for that Gold Fury, though.
I mean, Pandemonium was losing the Gold Fury at the end of the day. Accounting department maybe sticking around a little bit too much, maybe a little too eager to take that fight since Kalas was in that Draconic Corruption form. The fact that Kalas' Sunder goes a little bit wide is a huge deal in that fight, because Emilzy ends up living for a much longer period of time. Ice has to commit a little bit longer than he really wants to, and then it's a pretty easy cleanup for Pandemonium from there. And it's starting to become a problem in the jungle as Sarpei's up 2.5 levels over this Gilgamesh. As strong as Gilgamesh is, I don't think you can afford to take that type of deficit.
Ultimate used by Streak Up. Sarpei tries to get a couple of bits of damage with the skewer, but not going to find anything. Okeanos loses out the beads, though. It's a big relic they're able to take away from him. Not quite level 12, so he doesn't have to access that second relic just yet. In fact, he's going to have to back again before he's able to pick that one up. Kalas is just going to hold some of the wave, hold some of the farm. Stun on the Sarpei because of rotation by Ice Size. Dropkick gets beads away, and Streak Up there to play the bully for him. Diving in out of the sky is Okeanos, but he dives into the middle of 3 of them. He gets one, though, before he falls down. Streak Up able to trade out with that. Now Ice using the Winds of Samash just probably as a zoning tool, but over the wall, Joshy's going to get some damage off onto Ice Kalas in a little bit of danger. Now leaps onto Wolfie. Joshy's still aggressing forward on that four-legged form. Going to get the knock up onto Kalas, but he's able to leap away before the spin comes out. And out of all of that, only a 1-for-1 trade.
But it's a worthwhile trade for accounting department because Sarpei was starting to get this massive lead, and now that was a lot of time wasted by him where he doesn't get a whole lot of gold or experience. Ice is able to go and farm, catch up a little bit. Not a problem there for the accounting department. And really, that all goes back to a pretty significant misplay by Pandemonium on that gank where they overlap their CC on top of Okeanos' beads. They had 2 slows. They had Skewer Slow and the Petrify from Medusa's ultimate. You have to let him beads one. He's going to use it. If you just hold the other, it doesn't matter which one goes first or second. You just have to hold one of those slows until after those purification beads wear off, because then it's a free dive. He doesn't have dash, he doesn't have Aegis, and you've got plenty of movement speed for Sarpei even without that Kingslayer ultimate available at that point. That would have been a kill. The fact that Okeanos gets to live ends up killing Sarpei on the back end, because then he gets ulted, of course, by the Chernobog. So definitely need to clean up that overlapping CC when it comes to the team fights.
Yeah, a little bit of touching up to do for kind of both of these teams here. Right now, Kalas is really struggling to stay on top of his farm game. He's 2 levels down to Millsy. Remember, Millsy was the one who got first blooded, but he's the one who's up 2 levels to Kalas, just not able to get that same level of farm that Millsy's been able to succeed with. And on a Fafnir, like you said, is a little strange because he gets that natural extra gold just because of the nature of the god himself. Sarpei, though, posturing up towards Kalas. Wall comes through and a hammer. We're set the Draconic form very early on to Kalas, and that's the level of pressure that Pandamonium has put. They're only up a few hundred gold, but Kalas is down so far in experience that he has to use Dragon Form anytime somebody just basically walks up to him. Sarpei gonna go through in a D-transform out of Kalas. Gonna get hit by a lot of damage. That Petrify almost takes him out. Deathwalker forced up in the sky, but he dives back down onto 3. Diving in the sky from Okeanos out of the rip as well. Makana is in the front line, hitting the W key with that Thorns on as well. Ice Eyes walks out of the wind to Samaj. Leap in by Kana with that ultimate, but he's not going to get too much of it. He's going to get slowed. A good wall by Emilzy will zone away the rest of the accounting department as Pandemonium is low and they have to retreat.
Yeah, like the engage by Pandemonium. I like them forcing Kalas' ultimate. Think Sarpei was a bit ambitious on his dive. I don't think there's any way without any pen in the build that he was ever going to be able to kill Kalas on his own. And Kalas did a good job, turn around, insta-sunder, and then de-transform in order to get his cooldowns in the human form up and ready to go. I thought that play was very smart from Kalas, but overall, just a weird spot to be fighting in for Pandemonium. You're all the way at the enemy back harpies. I think they should be pretty thankful that accounting department doesn't get a little bit more from it because they were so far overextended. But it's also a testament to how well Pandemonium took that team fight, because despite their overextended nature, they were still able to get a lot of damage off.
They might be looking for more. Kana level 17 on this Osiris. Didn't even mention the levels of the Soul Lander because we haven't seen them all game. I mean, I think we saw a brief camera glimpse at them at like level 2. And then since then, we have not seen I know hair of them until just now. Deathwalker, level 17 as well in the Ratatosker. Setting up for the Primal Fury, the next objective for these two teams to look at. Sarpei going to throw a little bit of damage on Kalas in the way of the Skewer. Pandemonium have vision on the Primal Fury, and they have the positioning advantage for the time being. Emil's going to blink forward, get a freeze onto just Ice Eyes. Beads are going to come out a little bit late from him, and that's going to be allowing Kana to pick up the kill onto it. Stun on Kalas, and he is dead to rights. Caught in the petrification, caught in the shards of ice. There's no chance he's getting out of that one. 2 down quick from accounting department.
Man, can you tell the difference that Emilzy is making for this team right now? 1, 2, and 5. He's been a part of every single kill for Pandemonium. And right there, he just finds another great engage. The problem for Pandemonium is they don't have great objective burn or great objective secure. So the accounting department know that even though they're down 5v3, they might be able to mess around a bit here.
Walks up with the Sunder and a freeze onto Deathwalker. Emilzy just trying to create some zone. Enough of it for Pandemonium to pick up that Primal Fury, second objective on the map. I think that's their second Fury as well. No, they picked up only one Fury. They got the Pyromancer earlier on, so finally getting that first one for themselves. And if we look at the charts onto it, almost 5,000 experience in their favor. Still a little bit more worthwhile here. Only 1,500 gold separating these two teams at the moment. Fire Giant's going to be the next big one, but I don't think we'll see that anytime soon, Aggro. And it just feels like the level of impact Emilzy had is just far and beyond what Kalas can even kind of hope to provide for him. He hasn't hit level 12 yet, doesn't have that second relic online. What's it going to take for Kalas to even just get back into this game?
I mean, he doesn't have to match the level of Emilzy in terms of legitimate XP. Once he hits 12, you can be a level or two behind his support, and it's not going to end your game by any means. And of course, Kalas is going to bring a lot when it comes to these objective fights, assuming he's going to get a Frenzy in that second slot as soon as he hits level 12. He's going to upgrade that Frenzy, and all of a sudden he puts a lot of threat on the map when it comes to burning out these objectives. So that's going to be worthwhile in general. But certainly accounting department need to find an answer to these Ymir engages. They cannot keep getting caught. That last time it was Ice being a little bit disrespectful with his purification beads, thought that Emilzy was just going in to get relics, when instead it's Joshi up and over the wall with a lot of follow-up damage. Kana was there as well. Really good follow-up from Pandemonium, and they're really working in tandem with these Ymir engages quite well.
Yeah, it was kind of strange. He ate the full duration of the freeze and then the ice carpet afterward, and then he thought to himself, oh, maybe I should use my purification beads, but by that point, it was already too late because Kana had his number dialed in, ready to answer that call. Speaking of Kana and Deathwalker, he's going to force the ultimate out of Deathwalker very early on. He's going to leap right back down in, just help clear up the wave. But so far, Deathwalker hasn't had quite the impact on the Ratatosker that we might have expected.
No, not quite yet. I mean, he got the one clean-up kill onto Emilzy, but otherwise these fights have been very, very quick for Pandamonium. It's we use this Ymir, we blink in, we freeze, we get the kill, and then we back up. And then Accounting Department has not found a way to really re-engage, which is what their composition really needs to do. They need to take these more elongated fights and use their good CC to their advantage.
Winds of Samash used as Ice and Deathwalker try and dive Kana, and try the very heavy emphasis. Even Okeana's expending that Living Nightmare to get all the way over there. Force up Tronic transformation onto Kalas now, and Milzy down under half health. And all this fighting, just trying to get a lone Kana, already expending 4 ultimates, and that max, sorry, all 5 ultimates have already been burned. Meanwhile, Sarpei and Streak Up still holding on to theirs. Kana's just came back off of cooldown. Looking at this tier 1 tower for Solo, they could theoretically just probably walk in and take this one, but paying a little bit of respect. Big stun onto Deathwalker, though. Okeana eats a little bit of damage from the Tiamat. Joshi stepping forward. 1-0-4. Been almost a part of every kill here. Kalas just lost half of his health.
Yeah, the really good poke coming from Pandamonium, but I like the patience from Accounting Department.
Deathwalker gonna jump in, and no follow-up to be had beyond there, so
Nice
that's an ultimate
wall.
down. Wall gonna be used. Luckily for Okeanos, he goes into the tower, not to the Ymir wall that falls down. Deathwalker under half. Sarpei in the backline, looking for Okeanos. Joshua will manage to find it as he leaps in, and an ultimate in from Kana as well. Deathwalker stuck in the middle of 2 with no hopes of making it out unless he gets that dart online, but Sarpei, he'll dive in with the Sandstorm onto the minion. Unfortunately, no kill to be had beyond there, so they get that tier 1 tower and 1 kill onto the carry.
Again, I like the patience from Accounting Department because Pandemonium's position just doesn't threaten you enough on these objectives. You have plenty of time to walk in afterwards. They don't do the objective particularly quickly. They don't secure it in front of you. So you don't need to push yourself. But there, I think Accounting Department maybe just planted their flag on the wrong hill. The tier 1 tower is so easy to dive at this point in the game. You don't have a lot of guaranteed safety underneath it. And Pandemonium's just was so willing to just sit there and poke at them over and over and over again until it was low enough that Sarpei could then go in and make a big difference. Really, Accounting Department should consider themselves pretty lucky that Sarpei only got 1, because he was close to getting 3 at least on that dive. But at the end of the day, Accounting Department, I think, have the right idea. I don't think they need to feel particularly pressured by this Pandemonium composition. As long as they have decent ward coverage, they can afford to take these fights pretty patiently.
Starting up near the Fire Giant is the Accounting Department. I haven't seen Joshi really utilize those Tiamat minions just yet. The little lizards haven't been really thrown onto the map to apply pressure anywhere. We'll see if he likes to start kind of throwing that out. I mean, I think dual lane would be a perfect spot for it. Get him some extra free farm, put some pressure on that side of the map. But in fact, I've only seen him throughout the Tornado maybe once or twice, if anything. There, he's finally going to toss some minions, but it's in the mid lane, probably not where it's going to make that much of an impact.
No, and the problem with Joshi trying to use more minions that he hasn't really built for that style. I think that with the way that the Tiamat minions are now, you need 2 to 3 portals worth of minions to really threaten an objective. And you have no CDR in the build right now for Joshi. And I don't know that it's coming, because he's probably going to go something like Rod of Tahuti last item, and he's going to get 10% CDR from his power pot down the line. It's a different style of Tiamat build. I don't think it's inherently worse. I just think that it does take away one of her strengths, which is that threat on the side lanes with those minions. This build just doesn't do that particularly well.
Yeah, he did like to go the Charon's coin early on. Looking to the flip side, Wolfie just now picks it up, so he's quite a few stacks behind onto it. Maybe not the end of the world for him, but it'll be down a little bit of that movement speed potentially. However, looking at Deathwalker yet again, both soul enters level 20. Kana just trying to get some poke onto him as much as he can for the time being, while Okeanos will split push on that left-hand side. Has that Living Nightmare, so he can get right back into it. No problem. And now we're starting to see some of those little lizards come through over on the left-hand side. Fire Giant started up, lost about a quarter of its health before Pandemonium decided to back away from it. But again, you can see Okeanos holding that split push line. They've got to see that he's on that side of the map. I imagine Pandamonium are going to try and start something up here. Will be the Fire Giant. Streak Up and Joshi on the call for that one. Deathwalker onto the tree will miss Streak Up, force out the Petrify very early. But Okeanos died in the middle of 5 of them, has some beads and Aegis just to get out. Caught inside the wall. He'll have to dash out of it immediately. The Wind Smash dropped as well. Big double push will keep 2 of them locked inside. Joshi going to dive in very aggressively. Finally, Sarpei will seal the deal and Joshi onto Okeanos, but Ice Size leaps down right on top of them to at least get 1 on the board. But now with no leap and no ult, Ice Size caught in the middle of 3. There's no chance he's getting out of that one. 3 down for Accounting Department.
And finally, Pandemonium realized that they can't just sit around and wait forever until that Fire Giant, until Okeanos takes their base for them. They decide to put the pressure on a little bit. I still think Accounting Department probably could have been slightly more patient, waited until that fire had gotten everybody a little bit lower. The Pandemonium had misjuggled the aggro a little bit as Streak Up was taking more damage than he really needed to in that moment. But without vision, Accounting Department can't know. So Deathwalker has to go in first, create that space, allow the dive to start to begin. But Okeanos, the rest of the front line needs to be there as well. If Deathwalker's in and Okeanos is planning to follow, then Kalas needs to be in and Ice Ice needs to be in. That's how this composition you have to really buy in as a whole team to these dives with this style of composition. And I think Accounting Department just tried to straddle that line a little bit too much, and it ended up costing them.
Man, what nice teammates allowing their mid laner to respawn to get the Fire Giant buff. I never get teammates like that in my game. I always get the ones where I'm, maybe halfway through the jungle, trying to head over to dual lane. Minions haven't even met up yet. And right as I'm about to get to lane, they kill an entire wave. It's like, well, there goes any farm I wanted. Yeah, I'd be lucky if I could get a Fire Giant, buff ever on a teammate like that. But Pandemonium now up for about 5,000 gold to their name. Experience a little less impactful, but still Ice Ice not quite level 20 yet on this Gilgamesh. And he's not going for that Bruiser option we talked about earlier. He's going towards that Glass Cannon build.
A little surprised. I mean, you just have such a natural damage enhancement on your team between the Fafnir Coerce and the upgraded Frenzy and the upgraded Sunder. I don't think Ice Ice really needs this much damage in order to potentially solo out a backliner if he gets Frenzied or Coerced, but it certainly speeds up his time to kill, that he's going to be able to deal that damage. It's just a matter of can he do it while getting slammed by this Tiamat and or the Medusa at the same time.
Kana going to play frontline inside the jungle, zone away Kalas, while the rest of the team starts rotating back towards the tower. Deathwalker might be looking for a cheeky ultimate of his own as he's still sitting far back in jungle. Tier 2 tower will fall, and now pressing up towards the Phoenix. They've got to know that Deathwalker is still on the map, and so he'll finally make his way back to the base to regroup with the team. Joshi with his minions, he'll be able to push forward into the Phoenix. Kana going to be the first one to step up. Phoenix takes a little bit of poke, but nothing to worry about just yet. Everybody's grouping up and waiting for the first person to pull the trigger. It's going to be Milzy as he walks in with the wall. Frenzy popped with the Samas down as well. So not going to find anybody. Okeanos in the backline has to use his beads, but Sarpei finds one in the backline. Kalas takes down Emilzy, and Wolfie finds Sarpei, who's diving a little bit too far forward. Meanwhile, Kana and Streak Up at full health in the backline. Joshi as well, losing out a little bit of health.
Yeah, just definitely a miscommunication there between Kana and Sarpei. Sarpei gets a really good dive started. He kills Okeanos, though Okeanos definitely should have been able to use the Aegis at some point, I imagine, in order to survive. Gets Wolfie's Aegis, pulls everyone from Accounting Department back, but he doesn't have anyone there to back him up because Kana was trying to peel Ice Ice for Joshi and Streak Up. Now, I think it's probably likely that they don't need the help on the back line, that Joshi and Streak Up can probably handle the solo dive coming from the Gilgamesh alongside the Ratatosker. So not a solo dive, but a two-man dive on that back line. And Kana really needs to be up and helping Sarpei on his end of that fight. But regardless of whose fault it is in that moment, Pandemonium definitely were a little bit too split up in where they wanted to be on that team fight. Plus, I think that Pandemonium's composition is little threat as I think they pose on Gold Fury and Fire Giant. They do kill towers and Phoenixes pretty well with Fire Giant because Medusa's really good at this little hit and run play style on towers and Phoenixes. You pop in 4 shots at max attack speed with that Viper shot, immediately back up and wait for the cooldown. Tank steps in, 4 shots, back out. And those deal significant damage into these structures. I don't think Pandamonium needs to all-out fight, even if Accounting Department wants to. They can retreat, back up a little bit, play a little bit more slowly, and then use that Medusa Viper shot on the Phoenix in order to whittle it down.
They're going to do just that, walking in, putting a couple of pot shots onto the Phoenix while Kana soaks up the damage from the Phoenix. They walk in, minions have made their way in as well, so give them a little bit more potential, but for now, just trying to play zoning duty. The Tornado comes out, as well as the ultimate from Deathworm. But doesn't find anybody, gets stunned out by the Petrify and caught inside the ice shards. He'll fall down thanks to the credit of Joshi. Transformation at a Kalos, but Okeanos is low. They're trying to find any closing gap that they can, but Shrink Up will find Kalos and Wolfie with the shots. Kalos managed to get Sarpei, and it's Ice and Okeanos back down into the fountain. The Phoenix will be the target of Pandamonium as they're able to take down the mid. And likely have to back away now that Kana has left. Though he does have a full teleport online. And he can't find that ward, which he does manage to go through. So now back to a full health Kana. Do they end here is the question.
Yeah, I think they can. I don't see why they shouldn't be able to. I mean, Okeanos ult doesn't really threaten me here.
Well, Mills is going to dive in, and he's going to body block Okeanos, but only Kana is really in the fray of the throne room. He's the only one really dealing any damage to it, and it's not going to be much. So instead, it'll be a full retreat from Pandemonium. Might be setting up now for potential Fire Giant. As for now, though, they will strip away the jungle from Accounting Department and try and keep as much experience and farm off the map. Not everybody quite that full build just yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still think they probably end. The minion wave took a little bit longer to get there than I'm sure Pandemonium wanted it to. And that's what stops them from ending because they don't, you know, Kana needs to take Titan aggro first and foremost. That's the most important thing. And then let Streak Up and Joshi get their damage off. I think they misjuggled that Titan a little bit. The problem now is that they could have been in great position around this EFG. If they would have backed right away, been more concise with the call, and just been ready to go on this enhanced Fire Giant, then they would have had great positional advantage. But it looks like it turned out okay anyway. So you don't lose that much for going for the end, and you still have the positional advantage on this enhanced Fire Giant.
Good lord, that Fire Giant is being absolutely shredded by Pandemonium. They don't even have a Frenzy. That'll be Fire Giant down, enhanced Fire Giant on their belt. Kalas has to go into the dragon form immediately. He's going to get rooted out by the Lacerate, and Joshi will pick up the kill onto him. That's one down. Eyesight's under half in an instant on that Gilgamesh. He's forced to retreat. Deathwalker with no ult available to himself. He's going to have to leave, but Sarpei finds Eyesight's in the back, finds Okeanos, the double kill for the junglers. Sarpei coming up big with his 5th kill of the game. Joshi finds a second one in the fight, picking up Deathwalker. And Wolfie, the lone mid laner, I'm not sure he's going to be enough to defend against the 5 strong of Pandemonium. Kana is low, but I don't think it's going to matter. They're going to charge right into the throne room and start whittling down this Titan. They're looking for a little bit of damage on Wolfie, but that'll be game 1 going to Pandemonium.
Impressive stuff from Pandemonium. I think that they just played the team fights really well. We're on the same page when it came to their engagements. Emilzy made a massive difference for the team here, but the back line as well. I mean, 11-1 between Tiamat and this Medusa there for Streak Up. So you know that whenever the backline's going 11-1, you're going to have some troubles closing out those games on the other side, especially when the composition was so dive-oriented. Just felt like Deathwalker and Ice Ice were never really able to get on the same page in these team fights. Okeanos, I thought, struggled pretty heavily on that Turnabog. And I know that this is not what Accounting Department has typically looked like. This is definitely a little bit out of character for them. I think they maybe just needed to wake up a little bit, get in the flow of things, get warm. I'm expecting better in Game 2.
Well, maybe they can warm up another cup of coffee to try and wake up for Game 2. We're going to kick it over to the desk here in just a moment after this break. Let's break down that game.
Maybe that's where King Arthur's been. Morgan Le Fay banished him to the nether realm and just hasn't been able to play this weekend in the SCC Phase 1 playoffs. Pandamonium start off their set with a big win over the accounting department. Now find themselves 1-0 up and within striking distance of moving on to facing Elysium in the semifinals here over in EU. Mifflin joins me now to break down game number 1. And Mifflin, this one really, I feel like, gets taken over by just the good old back lines. Of course, when any back line is able to perform, you have to give shouts to the front lines. But really felt like Joshy and Streak Up just had a game.
They really did. But I'm going to take a cue from your book here and give the shout-out to the front line. I had a little bit of fun at Mulesey's expense at that initial desk, but he was making decisive plays on the Ymir, consistently engaging these fights, stepping forward, finding the walls, whatever it took to make sure that they started off on the right footing. Mulesey was very willing to do, and that's not easy, especially considering really, he's come back to Smite this year.
Yeah, a whole lot of move, get out the way from Emilzy there in that game. The Ymir was just buying so much space on a consistent basis, allowed this this Medusa to do what she wanted to do. 9 KDA, 20,000 damage for Streak Up. Look at the health bar throughout this entire clip. Streak Up just sitting in the back, dashing into the fight. Relatively untouched throughout this game. I think Joshy put together a good performance on the Tiamat as well.
Man, the damage from Tiamat, I mean, just take a peek at it here. Ow, my guy. That is absolutely swinging for the fences, and that's why this pick is not allowed through so consistently. It's not only that insane damage output, but it's also the ability to split the map, consistently dropping those minions, making sure someone has to address that pressure. It's too much at times, and Game 1 here, it was too much.
Absolutely too much. We'll get some Emilzy highlights on the back end of things here. Creepy skin, by the way. I guess that's a good thing in this case. You don't want to stare down the Emilzy. I love the highlight there. Throws up the wall and then walks away. That's what you look for
Ymir.
out of the Ymir, right? 1, 3, and 13 is what Ymir will end up at. 6, 1, and 9. Are you a wrestler, like a wrestling guy?
Yeah,
like
Rey
WWE?
Mysterio.
Is that Rey Mysterio?
619.
619.
Booyaka, booyaka.
That's right. It stood out. I was like, why does that sound familiar to me? Anyway, Joshy 619 here in this game. Kana deserves the frontline shout out there as well. 22,000 damage on that Osiris. Wolfie was able to put out some good damage numbers as well, highest amongst both mid laners, but it's ultimately Pandamonium, whose backline felt a little bit more comfortable on a longer basis there, and they're going to take game number 1. So now I think if you're accounting department, you move into picks and bans here for game number 2, you got to reassess what picks we're giving over to the backline of this Pandamonium team, because I think Tiamat either needs to be picked by accounting department or banned away.
Completely agree, man. At this SCC level, it's so hard to deal with that consistent pressure that Tiamat brings. That's why I was getting banned out the majority of last set, and that's why I think for the entirety of the rest of this set, we're not going to get to see too much Tiamat play going forward. In particular, though, when taking into account accounting department's draft there, that was unintentional, I was surprised that we didn't see so much from Deathwalker. That Ratatasker out of Soul Lane really was not present for the majority of the match, generally using that ultimate to clear his own wave or for CC immunity rather than rotating into the mid 3v3. It was a little bit curious for me.
It was curious. Picks and bans, though, for game number 2 starting right meow for Pandamonium up against accounting department. And Pandamonium's going to be in that first pick slot still, so Tiamat still with the opportunity to go over to the Pandemonium school. I don't know why you're laughing, Mifflin. Nothing out of the ordinary happened there. I'm totally unsure. Pandemonium in a good, strong spot here, though. They get first pick. They have a win after game number 1. And I imagine you leave Tiamat open here, force the accounting department to ban that pick away. What's with this Heimdall presence, though, in the ban phase here so far? Heimdall, all day, even in our first set, has just seen ban column after ban column.
Well, in the first set, it's because Vaporish Coast will legitimately play Heimdall given any singular opportunity. But now, I just got to imagine that the EU SCC scene is really valuing this pick, not only for its safety, has the Bifrost as well as the knock-up immunity from Gallarhorn, but also CC immunity inside the ultimate. Just a very consistent pick out of that Hunter role that neither team wants to deal with.
Wow, and Tiamat is left open if that's where Pandemonium want to go here, and Pandemonium do want to go there. Chiron, Yumojin, Soul, I mean, I think you can easily make that you could probably make an argument for banning all 3 that accounting department took away, but over the Tiamat, Mifflin, are you surprised that sees another game of play here for Pandemonium?
I mean, legitimately, yes. I actually called for no more Tiamat for the rest of this set, immediately eating my words inside of the very first pick of Game 2. Pandemonium, I think, are feeling pretty good about themselves. Tiamat was a huge integral part of accounting departments or Pandemonium's game plan last time around. Might as well run it back this time as well. But what I'm not going to be surprised about, and what I refuse to be surprised about for the rest of the day, is this continued trend of ignoring King Arthur. These guys straight up don't care about this pick.
There you go. Well, you ate your words on
Good God! I can't win!
You ate your words on the very first pick. No, but I think in a weird way that works out in your favor here, Miff. When you're talking about these teams, in what world are we constantly ignoring King Arthur? You can't believe it. You're almost scolding these teams for ignoring this pick. And then they agree with you, and King Arthur gets picked. So I'll give you a point for that one.
Let's go.
Because you were concerned that we hadn't seen it all that much, and now we finally do see it. So I think you were calling for it, and you got it. So Mifflin does get a point here. King Arthur on the board. One pick I didn't necessarily predict here for the accounting department was this Uller. Has seen some play, a little bit here and there at the SPL level, a little bit here and there at the SCC level. Does it slot in with this Fafnir and Osiris, though, that accounting department have started with?
It generally can, and with Uller's passive the way that it is, you're going to passively be able to build up some of that attack speed when you're inside the bow stance. So if you do elect to go for that Transcendence build, you're still able to find that consistent auto-attack damage as well. I was going to make the point that Uller also has great flex potential in a mid, but now the Ra's been locked in. I think we got a pretty good...
duo lane.
No.
No, you don't think?
No, I don't think so at all. Ra duo lane would get absolutely decimated day, but Uller in the duo lane can do pretty well. He's got tons of aggression. You got a nice stun set up from the Fafnir. Don't even have to use your own axe. Instead, can just stay in that bow stance consistently. I really do like this duo lane from accounting department.
I was wondering when we would see this pick roll through. Danza now locked in for Pandemonium. Going to pair that with a Sobek there as well. The aggression of this Danzaburo pick, I don't think can be understated, especially when it's able to find a bit of a lead. So that's going to be a fun lane to watch. Fafnir Uller, plenty of aggression there, up against a Sobek Danza Mifflin. What are your thoughts on the duo lane?
If you're on a Pandemonium fan, you better hope this Danzaburo doesn't ever fall behind, right? He does not have the greatest comeback mechanics. It's very easy to lock him down if he decides to use the rocket for escape. But if he does pull ahead, and that is generally going to be the plan for Pandemonium, considering how aggressive that lane is, There's not many gods that leverage a lead like Danzaburo. I mean, the rocket in aggressive, ride it, and then just drop the taunt, drop your damage. You're dropping people down to 80% before you're even using a singular auto attack. It's just crazy pressure that this god is afforded, as well as the fact that people don't talk about it a ton, but in that third ability, you do get damage mitigation from auto attacks. He's really good at taking those auto attack trades.
Pandamonium get Tiamat, Gilgamesh, King Arthur, Sobek, and Danza here for game number 2. It feels pretty good to me. Quick thoughts on accounting department. What do they need to do to win?
Hit the ground running and utilize the raw heals. I mean, Pele can do it all on her own. We saw what Sanford Soccer was able to do on this pick, but running through that full 5-man core of Pandamonium, it's hard to argue against it.
Going to be a tall task, to be sure. Pandamonium, they take game 1. Can they do it in 2? We'll go into game 2 to find out.
Well, thank you, Dolson and Mifflin on the desk for that one. Pandemonium up 1-0 here, aggro, and I don't know. I kind of like this roster that Pandemonium's been able to pick up here in these picks. It feels like they kind of got like, maybe top 3 in every role.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that Danza, if your name's Panda Cat, of course, it's top 3, but I'm yet to be convinced for a lot of other hunters how good Danza is quite yet. But otherwise, yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I think that they just have a great mix of early game aggression and everything like that. But where is Deathwalker going off to? He's going to speed buff to invade this. He's got teleport. Okay, so he knows that it's pretty likely that Sarpei is starting on red. So he's going to curse and Invader's Curse and all, invade the speed, but he only takes the buff, and then he TP's out. So it's really he doesn't pick it up. He wants the blue. That makes sense to me. I'm a little surprised he doesn't kill the minis. It just set off because then you have timer. And you could potentially invade on the next one. Invading speed's very difficult for sure, but at least prevent him from hitting level 2 off the 2 minis. I thought that was going to happen. Yeah, if you kill another mini, then at least that stops him from hitting level 2 and slows down his clear on back harpies pretty considerably. And I can't imagine it would have taken a whole lot more of Deathwalker's time in order to kill one more of the mini harpies.
Well, Kalas, he's going to get zoned away because of the alluring spirits. Needs one more basic, and Millsy will fight him, but now Streak Up's in danger as he gets low as well, but Okeano's not able to finish it. Gets a nice bladed arrow to deal some damage back, but first blood goes the way of Pandamonium this time instead of accounting department. But yeah, no, I'm kind of with you on that invade. The mini was enough to hit level 2, so yeah, Sarpei's sad. Oh man, I lost my speed buff, but he still hits level 2.
Yeah, it certainly matters. I like the play overall. Just think that maybe that math could have worked out a little bit better in their favor. But I like the creativity. That's something that you can always count on from the accounting department, that they're going to be pretty active in the way they're thinking about the map and how to play it. And it's a pretty free invade. The only thing you lose is the fact that your TP's on cooldown for about 2 minutes. But I think it's pretty likely that Deathwalker is going to want to stay in lane until right around that TP comes back anyways. So in that sense, it's nothing but a pure win in this instance.
I mean, maybe correct me if I'm wrong onto this one, but usually when you go for these invades, you kind of want to set up for the pressure for the next one, because, yeah, getting that first level invade, yeah, that's big. You get that extra experience, you deny them that, but if you don't get anything afterward, you don't get that second speed, that second red, second purple, whatever it may be, all you did was just kind of minorly delay the very, very early game.
Yes, but setting up for the second speed invade is going to be difficult anyways. So it's really about setting Sarpei behind more. And typically, that is correct, that you want to set up for the next invade. It's not just about one. It's about how we can start to repeat them. Or, in this instance, it's about, can we set Sarpei's timer so that it comes up at a different time than he's used to, that he won't be able to defend something like a red or a purple at the same time because his speed's going to be up, and then he's going to have to make a choice. Either fall further behind Ice, who's getting his speed on time, or lose out on that potential speed buff XP later on. So those are really what you're looking for a lot of the time, but I think that that's just a different way for Deathwalker to start more than anything else, more so than setting up it's not really a map macro plan, it's more setting up.
We'll turn immediately onto Wolfie for even thinking of stepping towards those mid camps. Ice a little too preoccupied to be able to help his mid laner there. Big stun back. Eyeside's gonna have to use the Volcanic Lightning, but Emilzi's made a
Close.
rotation over. And the tick from the winds of Samash will able to get the final kill. A little close there for Sarpé, though.
Yeah, very close. Good idea there by Ice. Maybe he could have lived if he just would have ulted out towards the tower line, but decides to try and trade out the kill. Doesn't go his way, but he was, 30 damage off his calculations. So don't have a major problem with him going for it. But already, this invade has not set Sarpé too far behind. He's more active on the map a little bit earlier on. Ice still sitting on boots 2 in comparison to Sarpé finishing his off because of those early kills.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of looking at the timers of the speed buff, it's maybe, like 30, 40 seconds difference between the two. So, yeah, that's going to kind of impact his farm a little bit, but I'd imagine, by 10, 15 minutes, that's going to kind of normalize between the two teams anyways.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a long-term plan for the accounting department, just the way they wanted to start it off. But Pandemonium's composition, we're seeing the strength of it. It's all in, is fantastic. And we talked a little bit at the end of last game about how, despite having good picks to dive for accounting department, they didn't really find a way to dive cohesively in that match. The Pandemonium draft, they need to dive cohesively, but I think it's a little bit easier to execute on, because in the last game, the accounting department had Merlin. He can't really dive effectively. You're leaving him on an island. Tiamat dives fantastically through the mid lane. Danza is some of the best dive that you can have as an ADC. Accounting department shouldn't be expecting Pandemonium to sit back and wait for these fights to just kind of play out as per normal. If I'm Pandemonium, I'm putting the pedal to the metal. I'm getting in there as hard as humanly possible and just diving in onto the backline of the accounting department, because Uller Ra is an awfully susceptible backline to dive as is, and that's before we account for how good the dive is on Pandemonium.
And you really can't kind of, just tread waters with this team either. If you leave a Ra alive in the back for too long, he's just going to heal himself up. He's going to heal his teammates up. So you kind of have to all-in dive onto this team. They'll trade out, Forp and Gorp here, 1-1 for the teams. They'll be able to get those objectives finally spawning on the map. The Gorp here will be up in just momentarily. Emilzi gets a pluck on the Kalox. He's not too worried about it. A nice drop kick, ultimate in as well from the mid laner. Wolfie's not able to get much off of it. Volcanic Lightning in, trying to dive all in onto Joshi, and they'll pick him up. Emilzi unable to save his teammate, and Sarpé had to dive all the way into the back, into the jungle, but he gets a blink engage real quick to at least trade out 1-1.
Really good identification by Ice and the rest of the accounting department that Joshi was just completely out of mana. Doesn't have any MP5 really in the build. Of course, the Conduit gem is there, but no sort of Charon start or Lost Artifact like we normally see, and they're able to instantly get on top of him and punish him for not having that mana. Perfect dive from the Pele as per usual, and just maybe a slight overinvestment from Pandemonium into Kalas. But more credit, I think, deserves to go to the accounting department for understanding how to turn that fight around, and to Wolfie for hitting some really good damage on Sarpé and keeping him out of the fight for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think the big thing there was, like you said, keeping Sarpé out. He was kind of just had to sit in the jungle and wait for the action to die down. Luckily for him, he's able to get a blink and able to find to pick up that kill right at the back end of it to trade out. But I mean, that fight looked really good for accounting department. Showed a little bit of fire that they kind of seem to be lacking in that first game, especially towards the later stages of it. It kind of felt like once they had lost that first fire giant, that second one was basically all but free for Pandemonium in game number 1. Now it seems like they're kind of ready to fight a little bit more here. Streak up. Going to start on the Okeanos, but maybe recognizing Okeanos is kind of standing his ground a little too much, as Ice was over on that side of the map. Going to clear out the vines as Emilzi. He'll spot Kalas on the backside of it, and Oracle Harpies will quickly go over to accounting department.
Yeah, this is definitely a better performance so far from accounting department. That's all being said, still they only have 1 kill, just they're being more active like this onto Emilzi. They don't get the kill, but they're playing up and aggressively, and that's what I always prefer to see.
Yeah, well, Emilzi, he's still going to stand up to the front line despite being at half health, looking for a potential pluck, but recognizing that one missed pluck could spell the end of his life there. He does have lurking in the water still, but not going to elect to go for that dive just yet. Sarpé, he's going to leap past Kalas into the mid lane. Josh and Emilzi will rotate back over. While Solo Lane just kind of left on this island. We didn't see any of King Arthur in set 1. We didn't see him looked at really at all in game 1 of this set. But now we're finally seeing him. What is it that this King Arthur just provides that teams, or maybe what is it the lack of that he provides? These teams just kind of ignored him for the first 4 games of the day.
Yeah, I think that a lot of Arthur's strength is in his early game control, early to mid game, and a lot of times, I know it's a meme that the players don't necessarily like all the time, but the reality of the situation is that a lot of games in the EU SCC are a little bit more focused on the late game and the team fighting phase. And Arthur is fantastic there, but you do lose some of his equity on the map by not playing aggressively around him early on, by not using his lane dominance and his ability to scrap around blues really well and things like that. But it certainly doesn't mean that he's not valuable over there in the solo lane. I think that the EU SCC has kind of found the way that they want to pick in the solo lane. Things like Osiris are a little bit better because they scale well into the team fight in terms of just creating space. Arthur does that as well, but I think Arthur is a little bit easier to kill at times in the late game than someone like Osiris, who has all that damage mitigation. It's just a matter of playstyle for this region, and I think it makes sense to me that we see Arthur, 1 in 4 games or 1 in 5 games here so far today in the EU. That sounds about right to me.
Oh, rocket used by Streak Up, but not going to get anything off the tail end of it. Not even a beads out of Okeanos needed for it. But kind of talking on to the Soul Layers a little more while we actually do have a little bit of lull in the action. This Fighter's Mask start has kind of become a big thing. Now I say there's no action. All the action starts up. Streak Up just gets 100-0 by the duo jungle composition. Went to Samash used into the back line. Wolfie has to use his ultimate, but that's not going to save his life. Sarpei will get the final base to take him down into the dragon form as Kalas. He gets a nice little leap away to safety. Joshi is low, and Ice is looking for blood. He is looking for a way through. Volcanic Lightning just misses off the rip, and a pluck will make sure he doesn't get to finish the job. And Millsy able to pick up one. Okeanos rotating over. Joshi's still alive, but he is low in mana. He needs some kind of help, some way out. He's going to use the minions to body block for as much as he can, and a Millsy. He blasts himself backwards, and it might be just enough bladed arrows, not enough damage. The hail of arrows misses as well. Joshi leaps into the tower. What are you doing, Okeanos? He will fall down, and Joshi just laughs at his corpse at the misplay.
No, not like this, J-Mac. It was going so well for the accounting department.
Everything.
And just a couple of miscues. I mean, Okeanos is not quite accurate enough in that team fight. Obviously, you think that should be a kill for him, despite jumping into the tower. You know, we don't even have to cover that. But what a play by Emilzy, plucking Ice away as soon as Volcanic Lightning CC frames are over, able to get that pluck, and then sets up Sarpei to just absolutely slam Ice and Kalas together with that dropkick. That was a sick combo between the jungle and support for Pandamonium that really made that fight go a lot better for accounting department anyways. Still think, of course, that Okeanos should be able to pick that one up on the back end, but either way, I think Pandamonium would have been pretty happy with the outcome.
Yeah, for sure onto that one. I mean, a pluck into a drop kick might be one of the most satisfying combos you get. I'd love to see, we'll probably never get to see it, at a competitive level, but just a full team of gods with hardcore displacement, get somebody with, an Earthbreaker from a Hercules into a pluck, into a Sylvanas Fold, and then you just, do a drop kick straight into the tower after that just to add insult to injury. Would be pretty funny to see, but being able to get that level of setup and that level of communication there, Millsy really stepped his game up in this his little time out here for the competitive scene. You wouldn't believe it seeing this kind of gameplay.
No, he's looked really good so far today, and I think he's really that piece that Pandamonium was missing from being able to take that next step. Obviously, still here in Game 2, it is still a very close game, not guaranteed by any means, but this matchup with accounting department, one that historically I would have said probably a little bit accounting department favored, 55-45. From what I've seen so far, the addition of Emilzy has really made a big difference for this team, and I'm excited to see how they continue to improve during these playoffs. Ooh,
beads out of Sarpei. He gets stuck on the wrong side of the wall. Triple stun, though, out of Josh. He's going to set up Emilzy lurking in the waters. He's going to get a pluck onto Ice. Throws him right into the clutch of Joshi, and that's going to force Ice the Volcanic Lightning away. Emilzy, no way he's getting out of that one. He's caught between Deathwalker and Okeanos. Now Joshi once again low in mana, facing the Wrath of Okeanos. Deathwalker's on his side. This time Blade Arrow's good, but Joshi able to sneak out for just a moment until Wolfie drops the heal right on top of him to take him down. But now that Kana's made his rotation through, he's going to try and make whatever impact he can. But Wolfie, he's able to make it out. Now he has to turn his sights over towards Ice, who has no escape. Streak Up able to clean that kill. Okeanos now low, forced to leap away as well. And Wolfie and Deathwalker will heal up under the Solar's blessing for just a little while longer.
I mean, all these fights that end up this close are going to favor Accounting Department if Wolfie lives, and he does there, needs both the relics in order to do so. I think the main problem for Pandamonium so far has been Joshy's mana pool. I mean, how many fights have we seen where he's just completely going into these scraps and makes a big difference and then can't anymore? Now he's finally finished off the Charon's coin. He was sitting on Restored Artifact in that fight. Now he's finished off the Charon's, so that's a big boost in that MP5, and he really needs it. I think if Joshy has had mana in these last few fights, Pandamonium is wiping Accounting Department. We'll see if they're able to do so now that Joshy actually might have the resources to keep on fighting.
It's a case of, all right, guys, I'm ready to fight. Cast 2 spells. All right, guys, I'm no longer ready to fight. It has just kind of been the name for Joshy here. Like you said, now at the Charons, he's got a little bit of extra sustain, but I think that's kind of the nature of this more burst-style build that you were talking about in game number 1, where he's going for the damage. I want to kill you in the front line, face tank you here. But he's not going with any kind of cooldown reduction, any kind of mana sustain with it. So once he drops that kit, it kind of feels like that's the end of the fight for him. He doesn't really have anything on the back end of it.
Yeah, it just takes a long time. I mean, Tiamat cooldowns are fairly long, but she is a stance switcher. Nice axe.
Caught in the leaf. Okeanos with a nice prediction onto the leaf, tracking him through it and able to pick that up nice and easy. Relic still down from the last fight for Streak Up, so he had no escape available. The rocket would have definitely been too long. Now it sets up for the Gold Fury here for Accounting Department. They're going to shred through it like paper, taking that one down. Even a teleport out of Deathwalker just in case, because now that one is down, they can potentially start the fight here, but Kalos is the one who's taking quite a bit of poke as well as Deathwalker forced to leap away. A pluck catches on the wrong end of the wall, an unfortunate clash with the wall there means that Deathwalker won't get thrown back into the clutch of the enemy team. Sarpei looking for Okeanos, but Okeanos will make his way out, and the hammer will stop a Milzy in his place.
Good idea by Accounting Department to just back up. Even though you're in the 4v5, Pandemonium's coming in pretty strong.
Kind of going to go right into the back line on top of Wolfie. Leap in with the wins as well. Sarpei picks up Wolfie, and it might be looking for more. Deathwalker down to a sliver of health, and a Milzy is going to be able to pick him up. Kalos also low. Diving to the back, though, is Ice making quick work of Joshy. Diving in again. Okeanos gets the quick feeds off of the pluck, but I don't know if he's going to be able to finish it because the rocket from downtown. Streak Up's able to pick him up, but it's the triple kill for Sarpei and a deicide onto Accounting Department.
Man, just brutal there for Accounting Department to lose everyone on the back end of a fight that they could have just given Tier 1. I think all they needed to do there was give the Tier 1, and Pandemonium's likely happy with that outcome, but they stick around a little bit too close. This dive from Pandemonium comes up again. It's this long-range engage from Kana off the blink. Sarpei's able to follow up off the jump in and use his ultimate. Emilzy's there. This dive just becomes a little bit too strong. And Accounting Department's dive has been, let's go with worse than Pandemonium. Specifically, Okeanos' dives have not panned out, to say the very least, for the Accounting Department Hunter.
Yeah, been a little bit shaky on the side of Accounting Department ever since that one mid lane skirmish where Okeanos inevitably dove into the tower. It felt like that was their best chance at breaking through, but ever since then, it's just been this down slope that Accounting Department have been sliding down, and it feels like it's just impossible for them to get back in. I mean, look at the graphs, look at the way that those lines are shooting up in favor of Pandemonium. There just seems to be so little recovery here for Accounting Department.
I just don't think this draft plays particularly well behind for them either, J-Mac. That's a huge problem, is that Osiris from behind doesn't feel nearly as tanky. He's not putting out that damage output that you would expect. Pele can make it work, but Uller certainly can.
Goodbye, Okeanos. Drop kicked against the wall. That'll be the end of that one as Sarpei picks up his 7th kill of the game. Didn't even realize. I know he got the triple last. I didn't realize this man was already at 7 kills, 18 minutes in, and with a little bit bruisery of a build this time around, not going for that all in. Already picked up a Pridwin and a Void Shield for Sarpei, so and now going for
Love
what
it.
I imagine is going to have to be the Erendite afterwards, since he's going back into that Arthurian tree. But they're not caring about that. They're looking for the Phoenix, already taken down very quickly, except for that Fire
Whoa,
Giant
fellas.
buff. And where is accounting department? They're
Yeah,
just
okay.
not even present. Finally, they'll make their way back after they lost their Phoenix. They'll instead take the door out. Will be Pandamonium.
Yeah, that definitely not an end possibility there. 4v5, 2 towers still up, 2 Phoenixes still up. Definitely not possible for Pandemonium to end the game on that push. But I just think that overall, the major difference to me in this set has been how well Sarpei and Emilzy have played in these engagements. I mean, the impact that those two have had in comparison to Ice and Kalas, I think has been a huge difference so far in this set, because the front line has just been really, really staunch for Pandemonium. They've picked good fights pretty consistently, and they've let their back line just have a pretty easy time doing their job. Might be a little bit harder for the back line to do their job here, though, because no minions coming on this right-hand side for Pandemonium. They're committing to backdooring this tier 2.
Accounting department, they're going to stand up and face them for it. Sarpei going to go for a 1v1 in the jungle with Ice. Gets a better into that trade for the time being, but a stun on the Kalas out of the Tiamat Kana. He's getting low. He's going to have to walk away. Tower's still standing, but only for a short moment. They'll initiate the dive in. Sarpei drops the winds down, catches Kalas in the middle, and Emilzy will find Okeanos, who didn't have any relics left for himself. Kalas gets the transformation, but he loses Wolfie because of it. Emilzy's still looking for one more. Needs that pluck if he wants to find Kalas. He gets slowed down, but then only makes him stronger as the Wingblade procs. And the Phoenix down to half health again. They're going to have to backdoor this objective, and I'm not sure that they're too concerned about that one, as they'll take down not just the tier 2, but the Phoenix and 2 players from accounting department.
And they still have 35 seconds on the Fire Giant. This should be an easy mid-Phoenix as well. And then potentially you could just walk in and end the game as the fire falls off. Ice has got to go off, and he's got Blink Ultimate coming behind.
Yeah, he's looking for an opening, but he might have, waited a little bit too long. All 5 from Pandemonium push in. Titan is already under half health before Ice even gets a chance to get that ultimate off. Titan getting low. Ice down. Titan down. And Pandemonium, 10 minutes quicker than their last game, seal it with another 2-0 victory over the accounting department.
Look, I think in game 2, I mean, the draft that Pandemonium just got shouldn't be allowed. I mean, they should not have been able to get that draft for sure. And then their execution was then better than accounting departments on top of that. Yeah. So you've got to win one of those 2 phases. You gotta win the drafting phase, or you have to win the in-game execution. When you go 0 for 2, you lose in 21 minutes, and that's just what just happened to the accounting department.
Yeah, they might as well go ahead and check out and clock out for this one. This department is now closed as we go into a quick break. Then the desk will break down that match.
appears that history does repeat itself, and this time it's Pandamonium that are the beneficiaries of it. 2-0 over the accounting department. And game number 2 here is not all that close. This one's about a 20-minute game that Pandamonium just control from minute 1 on to minute 20. And Mifflin is here with me. My absolute pleasure to sit down with Mifflin. Always a source of entertainment for us between these sets. Miff, look, in the early game, you set up some pressure on that Tiamat. Things keep rolling through that mid lane. Sarpé starts to heat up a little bit here in this game, and Pandamonium just run away with things.
I mean, you kind of summed it up perfectly there,
great.
Dave. Pandamonium just run away with things. I do want to highlight that it just kind of felt like accounting department got sucked into Pandamonium's pace a little bit. We did get to see a little bit of a goofy Uller jump into the tower around that 10-minute mark, and it just felt like from that point onward, accounting department was playing this catch-up game where they were too scared to fall further behind. Even at a 2,000 gold deficit, they weren't willing to give anything up and kept taking these fights where they really did not have any right being inside the engagement. I want to see accounting department from the losers bracket
this is
put
brutal.
more attention towards his own game.
This is absolutely brutal. Look, a lot of attention paid to the mid lane here in this game. Joshy has no health and no mana. The casters talked about that a little bit there. And literally no health and no mana at this point. It's a pluck, and then Okeanos is thinking, all right, I got a chance here. And yeah, no you don't. Joshy's going to grab that kill. And earlier on, we saw a 2-kill swing in the mid lane. Things started to get out of control there. That one really felt like the backbreaker for this accounting department team. Great setup here in the mid lane. And then this fight here, Mifflin, this Gilgamesh pick, we were so surprised not to see it earlier on in our previous set. And this is a little bit of why, because Sarpé just has the freedom to operate here, grabs himself a few kills.
It does whatever he wants, really. I mean, this entire top-to-bottom draft from Pandemonium, I think, is leagues above
such
what
a good
accounting
draft.
department was able to get. Man. They got everything that they wanted and then some.
It is an absurd draft. We mentioned it right before the game started. We'll mention it again now. I can't believe King Arthur, Gilgamesh, Tiamat, and Danza all go over to the same team. Feels a bit lopsided, to say the least here. 2 deaths at most, 0 deaths at least for Pandemonium here in this game. So the accounting department now, they drop down to the losers bracket. They'll have a chance to make a run at things. But with the way that Pandemonium is playing right now, and I kind of mentioned that game 1, we're going to get a feel for these two teams. We're going to maybe start to feel out what type of set we're going to have on our hands. Makes for a very interesting matchup later on up against Elysium for Pandemonium here.
It does, and even if Pandemonium aren't able to take out Elysium, they get the opportunity to move down to the losers bracket themselves. Taking on Elysium, tall task, right? I mean, this is a very stacked draft, but if Pandemonium are able to bring that exact same game plan, that exact same style that we saw from this set, I think is going to be making for a incredibly exciting set up against Pandemonium, or Elysium rather.
You and I have highlighted it a little bit here. Elysium versus Pandemonium will be the next EU matchup. We won't see that today. We'll see that tomorrow. And then the Snake Hunters versus the accounting department will also be the next EU matchups that we're going to get a look at. Still best of 3s. Now for Snake Hunters and accounting department, though, it's really bounce back time. I think Snake Hunters, they might have a little extra momentum. You see up top there, the first set we had today, Snake Hunters at least take a game off of Elysium. But Mifflin, this accounting department team, they're reeling a bit right now. Pandemonium just kind of wipes the floor with them. I don't know how you bounce back after a game like that.
Slowly, and with the help of your coach, and the coach again is Alpha Jackal at home. He's going to have his work cut out for him, trying to keep the morale of his team up there. And as you already said, Snake Hunters can at least get that consolation prize of knowing that they made Elysium bleed ever so slightly.
All right, Mifflin, that's it for the EU portion of our day. After the break here in a minute, we're going to jump over to NA and over into NA. I'll do one from Agro Talk for a living, by the way. NA, do you imagine that meta, the speed of that game looks similar to EU, maybe a little bit faster paced from what we've seen here earlier on today?
Hard to ask for a faster paced game than the last one we just saw, but North America, if history's any indicator, we can expect some mud baths, some absolute brawls in the barnyard here. These guys love fighting in the early game, sometimes over nothing. I'm excited to see it.
And I think there have been some pretty close matchups between these teams over in NA as well, and should be fun to watch some of that come to fruition. Here in EU, Elysium kind of stood tall against everyone else. NA, you had a couple of those teams up top, but really felt a little bit more muddled in there. I'll talk no further about it. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, the North American portion of the Phase 1 SCC playoffs kick off.